And breathe. Good evening, UK Crime Book Club. I'm not going to tell you what I was just saying and why we're laughing. Stay between me and Louise. Hello, Louise. Welcome to the UK Crime Book Club and I Ask the Expert panel.
Thank you, Sam. Hello.
I got my teeth in from the promo this morning. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell the members who you are and...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course. So my name's Louise Cullen and I'm publishing director at Canelo, which are an independent publisher based in London, although we're quite far-flung these days. And yeah, that's me really.
So where are you based at the moment?
So I live in London as well. And, you know, I've got several colleagues who do. We have always had sort of people that lived and worked outside of London. I think during the pandemic, a few people have taken that opportunity to relocate, but we're really lucky that we were very well set up for remote working because we were designed, I guess, to be very sort of digitally savvy, and it wasn't too much of an upheaval to send everybody home for what turned out to be, you know, 2 years. They're coming on that way.
Quite a relief to be kind of set up, ready for it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think it was quite apparent, you know, from what I saw of other people in the industry and stuff, just how difficult that was. And I can think of times gone by when I've worked in other companies with different processes, and I can only imagine the head scratching that had to happen with working out how to manage the logistics of getting proofs from A to B and doing meetings in certain ways. So I think we were fortunate in that sense.
We've already got Leslie Lloyd saying hello. Hi, Leslie. Marion saying hello.
Hi, Marion.
Somebody already got, I'm going to go onto my trusty phone and have a look who all of the comments are from. But I'm assuming one's from Kaz because it could be Lucy. I'll have a look. I'll have a look on my phone and then we'll move on from there. Jackie McLean says, evening. Hi, Jackie. Marion's already writing there with a question. What's the most difficult part of your job? He's stealing my questions, Marion's had.
Straight out the gates, Marion. Could have warmed me up a little bit. The most difficult part of my job is probably related to the same thing, but I guess it's resources, and that's actually often me. So it is demanding, and I frequently wish I had more hours in the day to certainly to read more, to be more responsive more rapidly, and things like that. That is difficult. It's a high volume job, and also I suppose from an acquiring books point of view, missing out on them or knowing that you have to turn things down even if they're really good because they're just not the right fit for you, and that happens more often than you think. So that's pretty tough.
It does sound it. It's one of those things that if you're looking for a certain thing and it doesn't quite fit, do you manage to give feedback? Or
I do try to. Certainly, I think if I've put the time in to read something, I would, you know, I think it would be a missed opportunity to simply say, no, that's not for me, and not really expand on why. And also, if you're aware that authors may be submitting their work more widely, or they've only just gone out with it, hopefully, even if it's not a good fit for me, I'd hope that if there's any feedback I can offer about strengths or weaknesses, or even about market position, what it reminded me of and things like that, I'd hope that those sort of things might help people to get where they want to be in future.
You're a very popular lady. We've got lots and lots of hellos from people. Sheila's here. Hi, Sheila Bugler. She says, fantastic to see you, Louise.
Oh, so nice.
It was Kaz, Caroline Maston, who is one of our admins and one of the group founders. It was Kaz that said hi to us. Rachel Lynch, who we were just mentioning before we were live, so we'll explain that in a minute. Says hi. Julie Anderson, hi Sam and Louise. Hi Julie, I owe you 2 reviews. I am writing them, promise. I was going to message her today actually, so that's saved me a job. I can tick that off the list. The ever growing list. So let's start with how you started out in the industry. Did you always want to work in the publishing industry? How did you? Oh, no, okay. So how did you come to be where you are?
Well, yeah, that's I'll try and keep it quite condensed. I did quite a few jobs before I worked in publishing. I have been a travel agent. I have worked I worked for a luxury tour operator, also travel related, which was a lovely job. I often think about and wonder why I left it, because I got to go on really fancy holidays and sort of check out the hotels, which was great fun. I have worked for an arts and language body as a grants officer. I've worked for the Department of Health. I've had quite a few different jobs, not related to publishing, but I didn't go to university after A levels. And when I got to my sort of early to mid 20s, I realized that the sort of teachers, I guess, who had told me that English was by far and away my strongest subject and would be something I would enjoy working with in future were right. And I sort of very late in the day realised that actually working in publishing was a job. It wasn't really mentioned to me at school. If you were good at English, it was, why didn't you go and be a teacher? And no offence to any teachers, but I knew I would be terrible at it and wouldn't enjoy it. So I did my degree in my mid-20s while I was working. I did an Open University degree, and that took me a few years. And then when I finished the degree, I applied for an internship at a publishing company. I was really fortunate that the first internship I got turned into a paid job, and then took from there. So that was 10 and a bit years ago, 10 or 11 years ago.
Do you have a favourite genre that you work in?
Well, I love crime. I have to say that obviously this is the group for it, but in my role, I sort of head up the Canelo crime imprint, which we launched last year. And that not only reflected an area, I think, of publishing that Canelo had recognised we were good at and felt we could do even more with, but also a real passion of mine. It's always been, my go-to genre. Although I do read quite widely when I get a chance, it's definitely the genre that I just love.
Right there with you. Absolutely. Funnily enough, right there with you. Lucy Sampson, another one of our says hi, girls. Evening, girls. Hello, lovely Lisa. Francesca Riccardi. So do you want to explain who Francesca is?
I will. I'll try and give you the professional version. Francesca is, she's my friend. She's my very good friend, but she's my colleague at Canelo. She's our sales director, and she is brilliant. She manages our sales, marketing and publicity team. And Fran and I have managed to stalk each other and follow each other in our last 3 jobs. So we've worked at 3 different companies together. And we do sort of have a pact that, not that we've got any plans to go anywhere, but we'll never be separated for long. We'll make sure we stick together.
I like that. It's like me and Kaz. So, Fran asks, what are your favourite things in crime fiction? Detectives, amateur sleuths, cold cases, repeat crimes many years later, something different entirely. That's quite the list.
That is quite the list. That is.
Can you see that comment from where you are?
I'm just going to try and remember, test my brain. That is a really good list. I love a police procedural. I do find sort of police and sort of law enforcement characters are really, really engaging. Although that said, I think amateur sleuths can work really well, and they can often operate outside of the law in some ways, and that's really enjoyable. I love a cold case mystery as well, though, and I do think it's really enjoyable if an old case can be woven into present day events. So yeah, I mean, I like all of those things, but I think probably police procedurals would probably be quite high up on the list.
So that naturally leads us into, what are you looking for at the moment?
Wow, this is a good question. Yeah, I think that, I often try and think about, what I can see is working elsewhere, what I really enjoy reading, what we have on the Canelo list already, because obviously that's a thing as a publisher that you need to balance. And going back to what I said about if you have to pass on a book, sometimes it's absolutely not to the detriment of the novel. It's just that you've got something that's, would be difficult for us to market them both to the same people and to do sort of sales pitches to the same people if they were too similar. I think at the moment, I definitely have more scope for more sort of series. I love working with the series authors I work with. I think Marion, Sheila, and Rachel are all part of that. But I think as well, standalone novels with just a really strong premise and a great sense of place would be high on my list as well. I'd quite like to find something that was set maybe in Australia or Ireland. They're two locations that I really enjoy reading about, just personally, and I think they would be great. So that would be quite high on my list. But yeah, just strong voices and a really good hook, I think, is you're always the thing that would make me pay attention.
Funnily enough, whoever's responsible for your marketing, I saw Sheila's The Lucky Eight today as I was scrolling through the news. And so I remembered that I hadn't actually bought it yet. So I've bought that today.
Oh,
so that is one of my next reads. I can't wait.
It is so
huge fan of Sheila.
She is just brilliant, and it was so much fun to work on. And I remember that she was doing her own author event, and she was actually going through, she was awaiting my edits at the time, and she was talking about all these different characters that she loved. And then I had to tell her, like, actually, I want you to get rid of that one, and felt terrible. But she's just always, really positive, really proactive, really, responsive to sort of feedback. And the book is just brilliant, and I love it. And the marketing is Nicola, who's
well done, Nicola. Great job.
Yeah, she's very good. Hope you love it. Let me know what you think when you've read it.
I absolutely will. And you're really lucky because you do work with some fantastic people.
I do. I think that is just, I don't know if you're going to ask me what the best part of the job is, but one of the best parts is definitely the authors and the colleagues. A really lovely, brilliant team as well. But they're working with some just brilliant authors who just become like friends and are just so nice to get to know. And you do build up quite a close relationship, obviously, over the course of lots of books. So yeah, they definitely feel like friends, not just work related.
Tana Collins says evening.
Oh, hi Tana, that's nice to hear these familiar names. Lovely. It's like a sort of reunion. I love that.
It is. It always is. Whenever the Canelo lot are in, you get one, you get everybody. It's always so lovely. Somebody has said, I'm a veritable delight and read a lot. How do I get a job at a publisher? I am going to have a look who that comment is from. Oh, that's Kaz.
Well, Kaz, I don't know what to say about that. I mean,
she's a delight. We finally met the other day for the first time, and she's an absolute delight.
Delightful. This is definitely going to go in your favour. And apart from that, I mean, just knowing the right people, I think that's what a lot of people say about publishing. But I'd also say, as much as I love my job, and I really do, there is a lot to be said for not making your passion your day job as well, because the downside sometimes of my job is that I don't get to read as many books for fun as I might like to. It's not certainly never like a busman's holiday or anything like that. I would read, all the time if I had the chance, but it does definitely change your ability to just pick books that you really enjoy and stuff like that. So there's a lot to be said for being, on the periphery and taking part of these great events and stuff, but not having to actually sacrifice your chance to read books for fun as well.
You worded that so well, because I get asked that and I think, how do I say I don't have time to choose things to read for pleasure when I know I'm reading for pleasure anyway? Everything that I pick up is something that I would read, but there's no time for other genres. And yeah, you worded that beautifully. I'm going to steal that. Absolutely, I'm going to steal it.
But yeah, I'm sure you can, as you say, you can relate to it, and that is the drawback. If there was one that stands out, that's definitely one of them.
Jackie McLean wants to know, what surprised you most about working in publishing?
What surprised me most? Well, I did have quite a surprise quite early on in my career, because when I was interning in my very first job, the company that I had my internship with had an author who's on the Booker shortlist, and they had a really fancy party in Soho, and it was drinks were flowing, famous people there. It was a really glam party. And I thought, this is great. I'm going to love working in publishing. This is all so exciting. And that is, over 10 years ago, and it is still the best party I've been to in publishing. Everything from that point has been more likely to be warm white wine in the back of a bookshop somewhere. Not that I'm averse to warm white wine in a bookshop, but probably the sort of the publishers I've worked with, I think, have been more sort of smaller and independent. And it's definitely more that you take the quirks of the companies or maybe the locations or whatever along with the great stuff. So yeah, maybe that it's perhaps less glamorous than I thought in my first week of publishing, but yeah, that was quite a surprise. But I'm over it now. I'm fine.
Have you ever thought about writing yourself? Is that something that interests you or not?
People ask me that quite a lot. I suppose you can see that if you're an editor, I guess that people think that you may be a frustrated author, but I genuinely, no. I mean, I think I've definitely had ideas for books and stuff like that, and they do come to mind. But I think that the commitment and dedication to sit down and write a full novel, and then redraft it, and then do so much work on it. It is a really huge undertaking, and I think that would in itself I find that quite difficult to commit to. I think, so no, it's never been the thing that I've had in mind. Who's to say, maybe if I suddenly find I've got loads of extra time, then I might find I'm itching to do something. But at the moment, it's not really something I've thought about.
So explain to anybody who is interested what the process is. So you write what you think is a fantastic book, you submit your first 3 chapters and a synopsis, and then what?
Yeah, well, actually, that's an interesting one. So even the very first thing that you said, that can depend, I think. So at the moment, Canelo's, I'm probably jumping ahead, sorry, Sam. But
no, go for it. You can drop this bit in wherever you want. I know what you're going to say.
Canelo's submissions, open submissions, are actually closed. That doesn't make any sense. Our submissions email, we're not really accepting submissions right now more widely, and it's a tough decision for us as a company because we are quite a small team, and what we found was people were submitting novels to us and we were taking a very, very, very long time to get back to them, and it just felt unfair. Just the volume of books that we receive, it just does make it difficult sometimes, and I think that we just recognised we were best to be more upfront. For tonight's event, as we spoke about, I'd be really happy to for people, if they do want to submit to Canelo, to do that and to send to the submissions@canelo.co email, which I'm sure we can
drop in at the end.
Yeah, and put the UK Crime Book Club in there, because what we do is we try and sometimes go on social media to say if there's like a specific genre or type of book that we're looking for. So do keep an eye on like the Canelo editors and stuff on social media. And there are events like PitMad and stuff like that we do try and take part in. So the process for submitting to agents, like you said, the first 3 chapters and synopsis is obviously the tried and tested route. If you're submitting to a publisher, I would always recommend sending the full manuscript if you can, because what so often will happen is I'll put something onto my Kindle, to be honest, and not really register the title or whatever. I just read, and it's really disappointing when you get like to what you think is a few chapters in, and you realize, oh, I've got nothing else to read now. So I would say, if you can, certainly to Canelo, it's best to send the full manuscript with an outline and a little bit about yourself if possible. And then if it comes from an agent, which is often the route for us, then we would maybe set up a call to speak to the agent about what we've liked about the manuscript that we've read, or we may just email them to let them know. We may, send out the novel like in-house. Often we'll ask for colleagues to read and to give us their feedback, particularly Fran and her team. They are not, I wouldn't call them the gatekeepers, but if they don't like something, it definitely puts me off. So I always like to have my ally on side there. And then after that, it's sort of, a case of, if we find out maybe if the agent is considering other offers or other people are going to get back to them, that can depend on how things go. That can just make the process a little bit longer. We might speak to an author to tell them what we think and try and tell them how great Canelo are. And then we go through all the contract stage. And once that's done, you've got quite a long wait before the book's due out usually. And then that would usually mean time for structural edits and development work with me or whoever your editor is. And then we work with freelancers to do all of the really careful work on copy edits and proofreads and stuff like that. And meanwhile, the sales and marketing and publicity team are really busy. We're getting covers made. We're getting the production team to do all sorts of different things to make sure our data's going to the right places. So yeah, it's a long process, a lot of work that goes into it all before the book's actually on sale.
How long would you say that for Canelo it takes from submission and a yes, we love this, to actually seeing your book
on sale. Yeah, about 8 months at the moment is our sort of aim. So that can depend. It might be a touch longer, occasionally a touch shorter. But as we're working with print, we used to be a digital only company. And I think that Rachel would particularly relate to this, being one of the authors I've worked with for probably the longest. But we used to be able to turn books around incredibly quickly and have them on sale very soon after we'd offered on them. But now we have different criteria to think about. We have to make sure that we have the printed books ready to send to bookshops, and we have to have material for the sales team to talk to all those retailers in advance as well. So we've had to extend the time. And I think our authors, I hope, are glad of that as well, because it has meant in the past they've been absolute troopers turning around work really quickly. And that can be quite stressful for them. So we're pleased to be able to give a little bit more time now for people to work and to be confident that they've had the chance to review their work.
It's a really good answer. Someone who you did choose to publish, and I'm a huge fan of Sheila Bublé, so I'm very, very glad that you did. What is it that grabs you when you read a new submission? Is there a single moment, or can it sometimes be a slow burn?
That's a good question. I think most often, I think that when you pick something up, you know that you're going to get into it and enjoy it, and then it sounds terrible, but you're almost waiting for it to start disappointing you. It's often that I'm most engaged early on and think, oh, I'm in good hands here, but sometimes things don't quite materialize how you'd hope and whatever. And the slow burns can happen too. There isn't really a clear moment in my mind of when I'm going to, call it quits. But I would say to authors, if they are submitting, to do really focus on making that opening as engaging as possible, because I think, I do stick with things quite well. I don't know if every editor would always stick with things. People might be more quick to turn things down, but the opening, even when you come to publish, if readers are looking at previews or samples, getting that opening really watertight is a great thing to do, and just hone it and refine it. But do just always, keep in mind that you have to, get that crucial sort of, the midpoint and the exciting ending as well. There's a lot to do. This is why I wouldn't want to be an author. It's really hard work. So,
is there a point that people say to you that is often the sticking point when they're writing, the midway or the beginning or the end? Is there kind of a consensus, or is it really varied?
I think it can vary, and I know that I'm just thinking about the authors who are here tonight as well, that some are meticulous planners, Marion Todd. Some are less so, and I think that I suppose the sort of people who don't, maybe plan quite as meticulously can sometimes have an idea of how the ending's going to work out, but then there's quite a lot to do just to unpick that and to get the, everything seamlessly working before they get there. So I suppose the delivery of crucial bits of information and reveals can be just sort of something that people can work on, the exciting hook and the setup, but then just making sure that you're going to deliver everything at the right moment to get to the ending. So maybe endings can be tricky, but also maybe just that, I suppose, from the middle section of the novel, just making sure that the pace keeps up and that you keep building the intrigue.
Marion says, woohoo for the Open Uni, my uni as well.
Very good to know that, Marion. There you go. We should know the reason to try and find some parties to go to together.
And without even thinking, I know this comment is from Kaz, because it says, in capitals, no one wants to be a teacher, only the insane do that as a job. No, that's
well, I wouldn't say that. I know some, teachers who definitely seem pretty sane, but definitely wasn't for me. I knew that. Nothing against children.
Go on an end of term night out and then see if you still think they are sane.
Oh, that does sound like something I need to get an invite to.
And funnily enough, Sheila says, Louise, I'm raising a glass of wine to you as I watch this. And Marion says, me too.
I really wish I had a glass of wine as well. I was saying to Sam that I will definitely have one after this, but I just thought I'll stick to my tea while I'm talking so that I'm hopefully
water.
Very sensible, aren't we? I wish I could say it was wine.
Normally.
Tea.
I just knew if I had water in a mug, nobody would believe it was water. So it's in a glass. Francesca says she's a great beauty and very modest as well.
Is she talking about me? It could be anyone. It could be
both of you. Both of you.
Probably one of our lovely authors, if I know Fran. But back at you, Fran, if it's me. She's brilliant.
Well, Lucy wants to know if she can have your job, please.
Do you know what? You can, definitely. I'd love to take some time off. It's really funny because I've worked in the industry for a while now, and I think my mum still is fairly convinced that a lot of the time I sit in a comfy chair drinking coffee and reading books, and I've tried.
That's
so disappointing, isn't it? That's why I'm letting all these secrets out, because it's definitely not as much fun as it sounds. It's actually much more fun than it sounds, but it's a lot more, lots of meetings, lots of, computer work and stuff like that. So yeah, I wish it was reading and then chatting to authors and stuff, but there's other bits of work that I have to do as well.
This does seem like a good point to ask you to show off some books that you've brought with you.
Yes, I will. And I'm going to, in advance, I'm going to apologise, because mentioning my mum, what happens is she comes to see me and she swans off with loads of my books. So when I looked on my shelves earlier, I only had two.
You did say that this morning, that moment of panic when I said, have you got some books to show off? And you went, oh, mum's bit.
She takes them all. So I've got a couple. So the first one I've got here is Last Place You Look by Louise, which I think you can see is that I'm doing this right. Got the sort of shiny, nice finish on it. And actually the one that's coming out in September was the one that my mum took. So this is book one in the series. And this is the Butler and West series. So it's the first one. And I've really enjoyed working with Louise on this because it's a proper sort of detective duo, and I haven't had as much of that submitted to me. And I do really enjoy those classic, pairings in fiction. If you think of like Carol and Tony in like the Val McDermid and stuff like that, not quite detective, but those really brilliant relationships. So that's fantastic. And then I have one from Rachel, which I hope, again, I'm terrible at this camera business, but this is not one of her Kelly Porters. This was her Helen Scott book. And I'll give you another little insight. This was I don't know if you can see it, but this was from my buddy Fran. So she sends me the books, and then she sends me little love notes as well. So I found that when I picked up the book earlier. And this was out earlier this year. Feels like this year's been so long. I was going to say last year, but it was out earlier this year. And a fantastic, something a bit different from Rachel, but so much fun and just so clever. I was just amazed. So yeah, sorry there's not more. Sorry, Canelo authors. I should have a ready stack of them, but you can blame my mum.
I'm just as bad though, because I have Sheila Bugler, I have Marion Todd. Why have I not organised my display of things behind there? I apologise, ladies. You know how much I love your books. I really haven't thought that through. Asking you to bring books and I'm not prepared for once. Terrible. Sheila wants to know, is that a real wall or a clever background?
It is a real.
I have never asked anybody that question before.
I don't move my camera too much, but yeah, it's a real wall. I'm in my kitchen. I'm not outside. It is an exposed brick wall in my kitchen, and I will confess, I was saying to Sam that I'm hiding from my toddler upstairs. So he's locked upstairs, so he can't come and interrupt. And this seemed like the quietest place, just in case he did make a break for it. So I'm in the kitchen.
Marion says she's reading The Lucky Eight right now and loving it.
Oh, it's so good. It is so good. The thing when you work on something quite a lot of times, you don't ever get that moment to just read it, with fresh eyes and not know what's going to happen. And I get jealous of people who are just diving into them. I think Marion will really like it.
That is one of the things, isn't it? Because when we're reading for author chats, you are reading and you're trying to just be completely absorbed, and you are, but you're also making comments so that you remember for writing reviews and for, that'll make a good talking point. I can't bring that up because that'll be a spoiler. And there's so much going on inside your head while you're trying to read a book.
Definitely. It's like a different part of your brain. When people often ask me, like, can I enjoy books by other authors? If I go to read, just for enjoyment, that's nothing to do with work. I I definitely can. It's like a different part of my brain. I think just it's sort of I'm fully immersed and just taking it in as it comes. But when it's with an author that I work with, inevitably you are thinking about, oh, actually, is that going to work for what we did in the previous book in the series? And I could imagine that if we change that bit, maybe that might work a bit better. It's just really different, and I'm always making notes as well, either in my phone often or just in a notebook as well. But yeah, it's definitely the case. You don't just get to race through it and then think about it afterwards. It's throughout the reading that I'm percolating on it, definitely.
I imagine your desk is like, maybe hopefully yours is a bit tidier than mine. I'm a bit of a fire hazard. There's post-it notes, there's notebooks, there's...
Well, it's really funny because we're a digital company, so it's sort of like, there was like, not much paper and stuff around in Canelo in my early days. And I have tried to go sort of digital and just do all of my notes on various apps and stuff, but I can't remember anything unless I write it down. So I always have I go through loads of those moleskin notebooks in all these different colours. I've got stacks of them that I've filled, and I'm always noting things down because I just forget otherwise. And my desk actually is, I'm sort of sharing a bit with my husband, and I've got another one upstairs in the bedroom that is too small to have clutter. So that's quite tidy, actually.
Somebody suggested, I think it was Marion, that we should have Francesca on next.
Oh,
Francesca, I can't read this comment out.
I mean, you might have to put up some content warnings or something like that, and maybe a post 9 p.m. or something. And
it says, I'm not suitable to be public facing. Honestly, my language is atrocious.
Yeah, it is atrocious, yeah. But I mean, she's brilliant stories. I'd listen to Fran talk, no problem. You could definitely sell tickets for that one time. It'd be great entertainment. She's brilliant.
So Marion's asked, what are the benefits of being an indie as opposed to one of the big five? That is a good question.
Yeah, it's a really good.
Bring in the hard questions.
Yeah, they're really good. And I think actually I'm so aware that, I didn't know much about publishing at all when I started working in the industry, and had to work a lot of these things out for myself. So actually for authors, it's just, what do these terms mean? What are the difference between these publishers? So I mean, I think just to give some context, like big five would be generally the companies that are sort of global, and they have very big companies over them that might have other interests beyond just book publishing. So I'll probably miss some if I name them all, but people like Penguin Random House and Hachette, those sort of big companies, and then they would have a lot of imprints within them. So you'd see on the spine of a book or elsewhere the imprint, but actually sometimes when you'll go into the copyright page and stuff, you'll actually find that it's a part of PRH or it's part of Hachette or something. So an independent publisher which is what it sounds like. It's not owned by a sort of bigger overarching company, and often as a result they're quite a lot smaller. So Canelo is, I think we've got 16 people at the moment, 17. I always get that wrong, but we are small. But I've worked in independent publishers with about 50 people on the team and stuff in the past, so that can vary a bit. I think the biggest difference, I think that when you work in a sort of a big five company, it is a very large, well-oiled machine, and many different departments and people that have to come together to make the book work. And that is true, I suppose, of independents and smaller companies as well. But I think just there are so many more people involved in decision-making processes. There are often more processes, often, I would say, somewhat maybe stricter rules. That sounds a bit, like we're talking about school, but I suppose in terms of how they would, ascertain the merits of publishing something, they might have different processes or different ways of looking at things. Often they will have much bigger budgets. This is definitely the truth for marketing campaigns and stuff like that. Yeah. And they may pick a book or books in a sort of period that they're really going to throw everything at. I think with independents, it's often more of a case that the resources are spread a bit more evenly across the books. Yeah, I suppose, that's quite a long answer. They're probably some of the biggest differences.
Rachel Lynch is laughing at something, and I don't know what it was because we've moved down quite a bit. There's been a lot of comments.
It's probably Fran. Probably something Fran said if I had to guess.
I bet it was. Sheila says, if Canelo ever wants to organise a fancy party with free wine, I'm definitely up for that.
So badly. I mean, I know who's not here tonight is our MD Ian, and he's the man in charge of the money. We need to just get him to do it. He does love a party, so I really hope that we can do it. I mean, when we launched the Canelo Crime imprint, it was in the middle of pandemic, which we had not anticipated, and if it hadn't been, we definitely would have done events and stuff like that. So I'm really hoping that we can do more next year probably, but we will get our party, Sheila, don't worry. I'm determined.
I'm laughing because I just glanced to the side and Marion said, I can confirm that Francesca Riccardi's language is atrocious.
It is atrocious. I mean, she says lots of really funny, interesting, clever things all the time, but they're littered with swearing. So, it's just the way she is. She's the same with everyone. That's the great thing about Fran. You don't get any airs and graces.
Rachel says, your front covers are amazing and so varied. How many artists do you work with, and do they read the manuscripts?
Oh, that's a good question. The second part of the question is no. In other jobs I've had, we would sometimes send manuscripts and stuff like that. But often, I think with the very sort of commercial and fast-paced publishing that we do, I think it would be unrealistic to give them the manuscript to read. But we do give very detailed information about the content of the book, down to descriptions of settings and characters, key things that happen. So lots of detail, lots of comparison books that we think would be maybe a good, jumping off point for inspiration. Yeah. And how many we work with is a tricky one. I haven't actually tried to work that out. I mean, I think it's probably true that we come back to a lot of the same sort of favorites, over and over again, because we just love their work. So there's probably around, I'd say for me and my team, there's probably like about 10 or so, maybe more, that we would gravitate towards, and they all have their different strengths and areas of real skills and knowledge. So we would, when we're briefing a cover in a meeting, we would identify then which designer we think would do a really good job on it, and then approach them and hope that they're free. Not free to do it, like not free of charge, but free.
Yeah, I know what you mean, available.
That they're available. That's a much better word.
One of our members, Leslie Lloyd, asked a question further up about if you have approved ARC readers.
I think I know what that means. So that means sort of with people we'd send out to in advance and have. That's something that's more. So the marketing and publicity team would definitely be better to answer that. And I would say no, we don't have like a running list of people that we would send everything out to or whatever. But I believe on our NetGalley, where we often post our books, we do have people who make it set as pre-approved, and also
pre-approved on NetGalley.
I would hope so. I would hope so, definitely. I mean, if anyone's got any complaints about that, then Fran's your woman. So direct all complaints about NetGalley approval to Fran. But yeah, so we expect the answer back. So we do pre-approve on there, and actually we would sometimes contact people who we know have really loved and enjoyed a book. If we have a new book out by that author, we'll often get in touch with them to say, you gave a 5-star review last time, and just letting you know that this is available now to request, or we can send you a copy. And that's they're often pleased to hear from us, which is nice.
That is lovely. Francesca asked if there are any subjects you don't like to read about in crime fiction. And I'll add to that, with any genres, is there anything that would just automatically put you off?
I would say that, in genre terms, like I would say that as a reader and sort of in publishing, I'm not like sort of fantasy and science fiction and stuff are not sort of areas that I would really have much of an interest in working in. I do, as I say, I read quite widely, and some of the things that I would I guess class as maybe dystopian or whatever would possibly fall under that bracket, but it's not something I really seek out as a reader, and I wouldn't feel confident publishing something like that because I wouldn't know. I think readers of those genres, they really know what they're looking for, and I wouldn't feel that I knew that very well. And then things that put me off, it's going to sound terrible, but I'm not a very big fan of children's voices in adult fiction. So if a book has perhaps alternating points of view or chapters or narratives, I do young children's voices. I just find it difficult to engage with. So it's not to say it's like a total deal breaker. And actually, on Canelo, earlier this year, we published a book called All the Little Things, and I was just blown away by that. It was a debut, and it had a teenage character and her mum as the alternating voices, and they were both really powerful and compelling, and it didn't put me off at all. But as a rule of thumb, young children and sort of adult fiction's not really my cup of tea.
I've just been sent an image of a free screen from Kaz, and we are just both beaming.
Good.
So she's got, just that must be the initial image of us, which is really nice. Sheila's run off to cook dinner and says, Louise, you're wonderful. Thank you, Sam, for hosting, and I'll watch the rest of the recording later.
Oh, it's lovely, and definitely prioritise dinner. No one wants to go hungry. That's
No, absolutely not. Kaz is saying that we're being very well behaved because we don't normally have water or coffee or tea in our mugs.
I know. I
feel
that side down. I maybe should have thought it through a bit more. But you might have had even more long-winded or maybe gibberish if I'd had the wine. So it's possibly.
You're really not long-winded. You're really not. I know long-winded. You are not it. So one of the things that we talked about that we were going to discuss was advice for established and aspiring authors, which is a broad question to ask.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes. I'm really happy to. I mean, I think, I'm trying to think about who might be watching and what they might be, sort of thinking about if they're trying to go out with their novels or, that sort of thing. And I think whether you're established or starting out, I suppose some of the advice would be exactly the same, which I think, reading really widely in the genre that you believe your book sort of belongs to as best you can. It is more difficult, I think, when authors are not quite sure where they sit within genre terms and stuff, and that can be the case. But if you can find authors or successful books that have got commonalities with yours and trying to work out what it is about those books or those authors that has captured people's attention, it does sometimes feel like there's a lot of merit placed on that, and it wouldn't be fair to say that it is just purely always the quality of a book that makes it do well, because as I mentioned, if you manage to get a deal with a massive publisher and they put a lot of marketing behind it and stuff like that, it can make the difference. And it wouldn't be fair to say that it's always the best books that sell the most. I know so many books I've read or worked on that you just wished more people had read or whatever, because they're brilliant. So it does it is a difficult one. That I think Canelo or aim is always to get the books into the hands of as many readers as possible, and that's what we sort of set out to do for our authors. So reading widely and trying to also to understand what it is that you've written, as I say, that can be really helpful, and working out what the hook, what the sort of major short bit of enticement is about your novel. So think about a 20-word or whatever way to sum it up and to intrigue somebody. It's often posed as a question, sort of what would you do, is a good sort of premise to start with. This is more true, I think, of crime. It can really depend what the genre is. Read books that are about writing. I think that's another really good one. I actually love reading those as well. And I've probably my two favourites have been On Writing by Stephen King,
which is behind my head, I think.
Is it? Oh, it's so good. It is so good.
Is it there?
I just adore Stephen King, and I would read pretty much anything that he wrote. But I did love that. I really did. And Into the Woods by John York is another really good.
It's another one that I've got somewhere that Kelly Taylor recommended.
It's really good, and just makes you sort of see how many patterns and things are present in sort of stories, I suppose, whatever the format they're told in. That can be really helpful. And then I guess maybe trying to just things like this, I think linking with people who are passionate about books or the type of books you're writing, whether they be authors or readers. It's a really solitary occupation, and I think it could possibly be difficult to work without sounding boards or support and stuff like that. So finding, I suppose, your your community, your people, I hope would be good advice for people as well.
We've got a brilliant comment here. Jackie McLean says, do you ever worry about the sorts of things that go through your authors' heads?
Yeah. No, I don't worry, because I think it would say a lot of me that I love reading those things as much as they enjoy writing them. So it doesn't put me off.
Very true, actually.
Yeah, actually, I mean, the grittier and more gruesome often the better for me. And I really enjoy very dark, disturbed sort of minds or, actions and stuff in books. And I know that that's not for everybody. But yeah, it doesn't really bother me, Jackie. So maybe that's something for me to think about.
Jackie Morrison has just said the crime writing community is so supportive and kind.
Yes, and this group is just really like a great example of that. Just so many lovely people and really passionate about crime books, and just really lots of kindness and encouragement. I think whenever I see authors asking about their books and stuff, then it's really warm. I think that's great.
I think this comment is from Kaz as well. We love the Canelo crime imprint. Loads of your authors are our members and are always a joy to interview.
Oh, thank you, Kaz.
It's always so much fun.
We're so lucky. I mean, they are just the best, really, really lovely people and so talented, and just feel really lucky as a publisher that they put their faith in you. And, it's a big responsibility, and we don't always get it right, but we do try really hard. And I hope they would say that if we don't quite get it right the first time, or we can improve, then we do keep trying. I think that's something that Canelo are quite proud of, and we do we promote books long after they've been published, and we keep trying to find more and more readers long term.
One thing I wanted to ask you is work-life balance. Do you have one?
Yes, I mean, I do. I think that the pandemic's made it more difficult for so many people, and I'm part of that. I think early on, I've almost blocked it from my mind now, but I had my son was not quite 2 when the pandemic started, and he was then, his sort of nursery closed for over 3 months, and my husband and I were really lucky. We were both still working, but that was a crazy time where it was just cramming in work around the clock, lots of very late nights, working on weekends and stuff. So I'm pleased we're not quite in those circumstances. I was very happy when the nursery reopened. And I think that the balance can be tricky because of the amount of reading that you have to do as an editor. You don't really, you don't sort of close the computer on a Friday and then don't think about work again until Monday. That's definitely not true, because you don't get time to read manuscripts in your office hours. It's always outside of work. So that isn't really great in terms of balance, but also the whole reason you're in this job is because you love reading and you love the books, and you feel that you want to give them your time and attention and hopefully help the authors to get where they want to be. So yeah, I mean, I try and try and be in the moment, and we're definitely on my evenings and weekends, like everybody, I suppose, just not doing a huge amount of brilliantly fun things often with the pandemic and small children and stuff. But I do try and make time to, switch off a bit. And I actually, I started learning to play the piano this year because I felt like I was at the point in my life where I didn't have a hobby other than reading. And I felt like it would be something that would be really good for me to try and do, because I've been talking about it for a long time. So,
and how's that going?
Well, I can nearly play one song, and that's been since January. So, I mean, not great, but it's good. It's good for switching off. It's good for giving me my brain a break, and just, I mean, I've got like an electric piano. It's not the lovely, the grand piano that you might imagine, but it's fun, and it's good for sort of switching off my brain and thinking about other things. And obviously, spending time with my family is, I'm sure, like many people, is the the best bit of the leisure time, and seeing my friends and stuff like that when I can.
Marian's just said free piano lessons in exchange for a Canelo party.
Oh, I'm there. I'm totally there, Marian. Actually, Ian is on holiday this week, so I think that means that Fran and I are in charge. So we could just plan one and just do it. And we've got 2 days. I think it's fine. We'll plan the party, and then he'll just have to go back and get on with it.
Pay for it.
And I would love lessons of Marian, because when I've seen her play, she is like amazing. I've got a long, long, long way to go before I can be anywhere near as accomplished.
Is there anything that you think would surprise readers or authors about the publishing industry, things that people just don't know?
That's a good one. I think, I mean, possibly just how much, definitely pre-pandemic, it relied on cake, caffeine, and wine to run, to function.
Isn't that just true of most areas of life, though?
Probably is, yeah. It definitely was true of travel when I worked at that, and just actually now it is just my life. That's what I rely on as well. But in a more serious way, I suppose that possibly what I've touched on already, that it's not necessarily that the very best books that are around are the ones that are going to be topping the charts, or the ones that you see on tables or displays or in chart placements in shops. There's quite a lot of relationships and sometimes money involved behind those things, and I think that's maybe something readers are not often aware of, and not to do down on that. I think that there's space for many different approaches in publishers, and I think for me it's so brilliant that people are passionate and excited about books, whoever they're published by, if they're big publisher, self-published, whatever, everything in between. I'm just I think it's it's such a wonderful sort of thing to have in your life. And I suppose, but I am more aware of how much goes on behind the scenes in terms of helping books to get into the most visible spots and stuff like that.
And you write about it's not a 9 till 5. There's no way that you might not get evenings and weekends. There are times when you might get a bit of downtime, but generally it's full on.
Yeah, it is, and it's not. Canelo is a great company to work for. It's definitely not. I think just across the publishing industry, actually, there is so much passion and enthusiasm, and so many people who really, I think, take it upon themselves to they feel like they're making a big difference between a book's chance of success and failure, and they really want to make that difference. And often will, outside of sort of their required work, will be thinking about ways to help make that happen. And I think there is a huge amount of passion and enthusiasm, and it's great because it's brilliant to work in an industry that you're surrounded by a lot of people who are just as excited about books as you are, and you get to work with authors and stuff. All joking aside, it's a dream job, isn't it? To sort of be able to work with authors and publish books. I mean, you guys are going to know that. I think it's just the best.
So I'd love to ask this question, and it's generally something that we ask of the authors.
Oh, go on.
So a different question for you, a different answer from you. Memorable moments as part of your job so far.
Ooh.
So obviously you talked about the big party that stuck with you.
I've already told that story. Yeah, that would have been a good one to say for this question.
Oh, I should have told you I was going to ask this at the end.
Not at all. I mean, it's a cliche, but there are so many. I think, unfortunately, some of the sort of the failures come to mind, like as much as the successes. There have been books that I've been desperate to be the editor of, and then missed out in an auction or whatever, and then you see them go to someone else, and it's really gratifying when they do phenomenally well. I probably, it's fine to say, like The Widow by Fiona Barton was a book that earlier in my career I really, really tried hard to get the rights and came very close to getting the rights, and missed out. So that stayed with me quite a while, but I just felt, the positive is to spot the talent and spot that it's something special, and just be glad that people are reading it and it's done well. Other memorable moments, I think going to start to work at Canelo actually was quite a big change for me. They were a startup when I joined them, and it really was, startup in the way that you'd imagine, like, a few of us huddled around laptops in a not very pleasant office in Blackfriars with, I think the desk I had water dripping through the ceiling on me when it rained, and stifling hot in the summer and stuff. But it felt really energized and exciting and new and different. And I was really glad that I went for the sort of, I guess you call it the more risky move of going with a startup that was very early on. And that was a big moment for me.
Lucy Sampson says she loves Marian's piano videos.
She's so good, honestly. I mean, how many talents can a woman have? It does feel a bit unfair sometimes, but yeah, she's brilliant.
I've got another twist on a question I've asked people, authors before. Strangest place you've ever worked? Because obviously you've been working from home.
Yes, yeah.
Do you always work in the same place at home? Do you have an office, or have you gone to the park and worked on your knee, or?
Literally everywhere. I mean, Fran will remember this. There was a point actually before the pandemic, the great Canelo flood. So the offices I mentioned, there was a flood at one point where the ceiling came in. I wasn't actually there at the time, but I think it came in over the weekend. So after that, we sort of tried to do a bit of working together, physically in the same location as much to keep those connections and stuff. And that was a lot of working out of, often working out of, pubs, bars, coffee shops, hotels, all sorts of places that had sort of space and Wi-Fi. And these days, no, I don't have an office. No, I've got a sort of desk downstairs in our main living area, and then a little one up in the bedroom, so that if my husband and I are both working at home, we're not going to try and compete to be loudest on calls and stuff like that. But I've worked everywhere. I've worked on trains. I've worked from the car when someone's driving. I've worked everywhere, absolutely everywhere.
Oh, I've just seen a comment from Francesca that I can't read out.
This is why I can't.
But it ends with the Great Flood.
Oh, I can imagine what the first bit is. Yeah, she'll remember that.
The ceiling came in right over my desk. That was exciting to come into work on a Monday morning.
It was really lucky it happened over a weekend because,
That's a good point. It could have ruined everything.
Yeah, it was just, don't come in today, the ceiling's collapsed. It was quite surprising, but, here we are, we're fine.
It's good that you can laugh about it now. It must have been quite a shock at the time.
It was. I mean, if I'm honest, the office we were working in, it wasn't, as I say, always the best premises. So it wasn't like it was, completely out of the blue that something else went wrong. But the actual, the damage it caused was a bit tricky. But luckily, everyone was fine. Everyone was safe. That was the main thing. And we're fine. That was fine.
We're coming to the end of our hour. That has absolutely flown. So we've got a few little comments for you. This has been a really fascinating chat, Louise. Very kind of you to lift the lid of publishing's Pandora's box of secrets. That's from Lucy Sampson.
Oh, no problem. I hope I haven't made it sound too, alcohol wine fueled by, crazy.
You've encouraged a few more people in. Jackie McLean says, fab session tonight. Marion Todd, thank you both for a thoroughly entertaining hour. Leslie Lloyd's pointed out how many authors also seem to be musical.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's just obviously just talented people all around, isn't it? It's amazing.
And Tana Collins, lovely to hear Louise talk about her experience of publishing. Thank you.
Thank you, Tana. It's really nice. And I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Sharon, to the lovely group. It's such a great one. And I hope I've been a bit informative and really enjoyed taking part.
You've been wonderful. And I did, you wonder before you start what we're going to talk about for an hour, even though it's my job to know what we're going to talk about for an hour.
Yeah.
That was so easy. That flowed beautifully. Really so thank you.
Yeah, I haven't been looking at the clock at all. I was quite surprised that we were about halfway through. But
when I saw the messages coming up saying thank you for a great hour, I was like, oh, okay.
That's a good sign. But it's been really, really good fun. I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Jackie Morrison says, what a fab session. Thank you so much. And Rachel Lynch says, thank you both. Great chat.
Lovely, Rachel.
So, thank you so much. Give everybody a quick reminder about Canelo.
I will. So Canelo is the independent publisher that I work for. We publish all sorts of fiction, little bit of non-fiction now, but I work on the crime books, but we publish everything from romance to saga to adventure, action. So check us out. We've got some lovely authors in this group as well, but do have a look at our social media and our website and stuff like that. And hope you'll find some authors that you really love reading as much as we love working on them.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody who has joined and commented. Francesca, you've been an absolute delight.
Yeah, she's so good. She's so much fun to work with and such a good friend. So thanks for coming, Fran. She listens to me talk all the time, so it was good of her to turn up. So it was good.
Thank you, Louise. It's been fantastic.
Thank you, Sam. It was really great. Thank you very much.